Yeah, welcome. Welcome one and all back to another edition of The Future is Female. I'm your host, Gabrielle Ducharme. I'm joined here, as always, by my lovely, legendary co-host, Nicole Pinter. Nicole, how you doing on this Monday evening?
Tuesday
evening. Why do I keep doing that?
You and Kristen both. She did that earlier today and last week too, which I think you also did that last week.
I definitely did that last week.
You two have some weird synergy with thinking Tuesday is Monday.
Apparently. Oh my gosh. Maybe because it just felt like a Monday today. I don't know.
Well, this Tuesday has been pretty good. How about yours, Gabby?
Well, this morning I get an email from ASU saying graduation dates have been posted. Please plan accordingly.
Oh, God.
And I realized very quickly that I can't ignore that anymore. That it is my turn to, quote, plan accordingly. And right as I got that email, my older sister texted me. She lives out in Washington, D.C., and she wants to come out to Arizona for my graduation. And she texted me, any updates on graduation? And I, literally, as I was looking at the link, I was like, yep, here you go. And I sent her a screenshot of the dates, and I was like, oh, God. All right, here we go. We're doing this. We're going to do this, whether ready or not. Here we come. So that was it was a highlight of my day because I realized how close it was. It was also really, really scary to think about.
Yeah. No, it's going to come really fast.
I know.
I mean, we're already only a few weeks away from spring break.
I know. And you and I are trying to do something over spring break too. And I realized today as well, I was like, oh my God, I have to get on top of that.
We should probably do that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I realized that today as well. I was like, oh my God, my life. Okay, I got this. But before all of that fun occurs, we've got a big event. It was a national holiday this weekend. Super Bowl 56. Nicole, I don't know if you want to start at the game or the halftime show, but what is your initial reaction?
Well, let's start with the game because we're going to talk a lot of halftime show in a minute. The Rams beat the Bengals 23-20, and Sean McVay became the youngest head coach to win the Super Bowl at 36 years old, beating Mike Tomlin when he won with the Steelers back in, what was that, 2010? I don't know.
It was in 2009, I think. It was the 2009 season, but I think it was in 2010.
And he almost did that when he was the youngest head coach to coach in a Super Bowl against the oldest head coach to coach in a Super Bowl with Bill Belichick a few years back and lost that one and got thoroughly outcoached. This time came out on top. Aaron Donald came out on top. They're Super Bowl champions. Joe Burrow was sacked 70 times this season and postseason. That's the third most ever. Not good. Even when he did have time, it wasn't much. Stafford gets his ring. Matt Stafford gets his ring in his first year in LA after 12 seasons in Detroit in an 0-3 playoff record. It was a pretty good game. A lot of people thought that the Rams would just run over the Bengals and it wouldn't even be close. And, they had control early on, but the Bengals came back and just start off the second half. It looked like they might take momentum right back.
I mean, they were within one really good drive of winning. Right near the end, that drive where Cooper Kupp caught the touchdown pass at the very end, that was what clinched the game for the Rams. And if they hadn't, if the Bengals had intercepted, if they hadn't actually gotten the touchdown right at the end of the game there, the Bengals would be Super Bowl champs right now. It's pretty darn good.
Yeah, and let's talk about the last drive for the Bengals because I think it was awful play calling on both sides of the coin for the Super Bowl. I don't know what happened. Zach Taylor had the worst play calling out that I've ever seen, though, of a coach in a Super Bowl in my lifetime. It was pretty bad. And especially that last drive really spoke a lot to it because why don't you let Joe cook? Listen, I know the pocket is collapsing quickly, but you're going to try and establish the run game now? Not establish, but you know what I mean. Running on 3rd and 1, and not even with Joe Mixon. Samaje Perine. He's your backup. Why is he in running on 3rd and 1, first of all? And then why is he the back in at 4th and 1 again? I don't get it. And also
the part that I don't understand is the 4-1. Why would you keep your backup in when you're on 4-1?
Yeah, and at least they threw the ball, but like even into that throw that Joe Burrow, somehow almost completed while being, spun around by Aaron Donald. It felt like I wish I could see another angle of it. It felt like Samaje P. Ryan could have dove for that and gotten it. It felt like there was a lack of effort. And watching that, rooting for the Bengals, but not really having a rooting interest in this game, I'd cut him tomorrow. Honestly, not that it was his fault, but he had 2 really bad plays in a row. Because even on the run, he chose the wrong gap. He ran right into Aaron Donald, which, why do you do that? If he had chosen, let me think here, I guess that is the A gap, but outside the A gap to the B gap, which is the right side, if he had run there was open field. He would have gotten the first at the very least. Is it still a bad play call? Yes. But the first down was there. If he ran just a little bit more to the right. And then again, I want to see another angle of this to see if the ball was really that close as it looked from the angle we had. It felt like he could have dove for it, and at least, even if he didn't catch it, there was an effort. It felt like he gave up on the play before the ball hit the ground. And listen, this game is not Samaje P. Ryan's fault in any way, shape, or form, but when you have 2 plays that are detrimental in the most critical moment, that's not great. And he's been an okay back all year, but yeah, I mean, as someone who was rooting for the Bengals, but really no rooting interest in this game, Bears fan, obviously, that was frustrating. And I imagine that was frustrating for any Bengals fan. Again, not his fault. What this game came down to was the Bengals defense breaking at the absolute worst time it could, and not having an O-line. That's what it came down to. Defense wins championships. Obviously, the Rams had the better defense. So, but
yeah,
that 3-1 play call got a lot of scrutiny, and rightfully so.
The Super Bowl on Twitter, the thing that caught my eye the most was, imagine playing against Aaron Donald. The best way I could compare it is feeling like you get run over by a semi-truck for 3.5 hours straight.
Yeah.
And that's what Joe Burrow was feeling on Sunday. It felt like he was getting run over by a semi-truck for 3.5 hours straight. And he's been dealing with that for the last 6 months. 6 months straight of getting run over by semi-trucks every single week. And for the finale of the season, we're going out big time. We're going out dramatic. You get to get run over by the semi-truck of all semi-trucks, the biggest, best, fastest, most powerful truck in the bunch, Aaron Donald.
And remember when I said 2 weeks ago and then again last week that if Joe Burrow goes up against the Rams, he might die? Well, he almost did.
Yes.
Let's just revisit this one last time because he almost did. And I mean,
yes,
injuries are the worst. In this game proved to be true. I mean, we'll talk about OBJ in a second, but first, Burrow and Stafford both went down. Both came back in because both are very, very tough. We've seen Stafford be tough before. This is not new. But I mean,
it's also the Super Bowl, right? If you're not going to show up for the Super Bowl, when are you going to play through injury, right?
I mean, Stafford was doing this with a 7-9 team against the Cleveland Browns back in his second year. The clip of his separated shoulder that goes around a lot, if you've ever seen it. I mean, and he threw the game-winning touchdown. But yeah, both guys went down. Obviously, both came back in, but I'm just glad injuries didn't determine this game because John Wolford did come in for 2 or 3 plays. I never saw the Bengals backup, which I think is Brandon Allen. But yeah, so do you have any other thoughts before we transition to OBJ?
Well, the one thing I will say regarding quarterbacks coming back into games and kind of being this is a bit more it's a bit more sour grapes, I guess, of me saying this, but the idea that you would expect them to do anything other than come back into a football game when they've been destroyed by Aaron Donald. More than likely, Burrow probably has a lot of concussions from this season due to being sacked or being run over 70 times over again. More than likely, he has very, very serious concussion issues. And more than likely, Matthew Stafford will have major, major tendonitis in his shoulder when he gets older. He probably won't be able to use his arm very well. And that sometimes that's the issue that I take with football a little bit, is that I understand you're expected to push through. I understand it's your moment. If you let this moment go, what are you going to do, right? But it's like after a while, and this is more so just on football in general, after a while, what is the breaking point, right? Because the torn ACL takes you out of the game, but the concussion doesn't. The separated shoulder doesn't take you out of the game, but the concussion protocol might take you out for one play, but then you're right back in, right? Like, there's, in the sport of football, it's just proven to me that if you are the starting quarterback, if you're the star guy, you're a commodity, right? You're a commodity to win a championship that's going to bring hundreds of millions of dollars, probably billions of dollars worth in value to your franchise. And when you're talking about the LA Rams and how much they've given up to get to the point that they're at, they couldn't afford to lose. From a literal financial perspective alone, they could not afford to lose this football game going into the offseason with absolutely no first-round draft picks, paying Matthew Stafford really good money, like having given up the younger guy, Jared Goff. Like, there was just too much riding on this game for them to lose if you have the financial and money perspective. And you have that perspective before you have the perspective and health and well-being of athlete, which is definitely a culture that kind of comes out of the Super Bowl. And if you want to call me out for that and say that's sour grapes, you're no fun, fine, I'm no fun. But when you zoom out and you look at the greater impact, that moments like that where you're going in, throwing a football with a separated shoulder, more than likely playing through some kinds of concussions, trying to play through a partially torn ACL, which I think is what OBJ had going into that game, you could understand why athletes look decrepit when they're 50 and 60 years old. Yeah, they might have a ring, but you can understand why they break down so easily when they get to be just in like their mid 50s and 60s and should look fine, but they just don't.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And I think you're talking to a larger issue that I honestly wasn't even thinking about tonight. But speaking of that, Aaron Donald may retire. Rodney Harrison reported before the Super Bowl even kicked off that he was considering retirement if the Rams won. Obviously, the Rams won. No decision immediately. He deserves to think about this. But 8 seasons, still pretty young, still in his prime.
Yeah.
I mean, but you get why they do it. And you get why guys like Calvin Johnson retire and Barry Sanders retire before they're 30. Of course, they're in franchises that are significantly worse than the Rams are, even, with their changes in owner. But, yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
But the OBJ injury really sucked. There's no other way to describe it. I mean, as soon as you see a no-contact knee injury, it's typically not good. It's ACL for the most part.
Yeah.
And it just, as soon as it happened, I mean, I feel so bad. I'm glad he got a ring. He got a Super Bowl touchdown before he was injured, but it's just not fair.
No, it's not fair at all. And it's not fair either, because if I had to guess, there was something else going on in the background. This goes to my larger point of that's his second torn ACL in 16 months, right? On the exact same knee. And,
is it? Oh.
Yeah, it is. It's on the exact same knee, second torn ACL in 16 months, which makes me think that leg, he's been struggling with that leg for a very long time. I don't know if because I wouldn't want to say that he necessarily didn't recover from the first operation properly, because he probably did. And he's young and he's agile and in the greatest shape any human being can possibly be on planet Earth. So he's going to come back very, very quickly from a first ACL injury. But if you tweak it wrong, if you're playing on it when it's already, because from what I heard from the broadcasters, it was already injured. He had already been struggling with it for a few weeks leading up to the Super Bowl, but of course, it's the Super Bowl. So we got to do whatever we can to bandage you up, get you ready, and going out on that field, because, once again, you're a commodity, right?
Well,
you're making hundreds of millions of dollars for us.
I do want to stop you there just real quick, because it just, to make the point of the commodity thing,
mm-hmm.
It's not just the franchise that is like, no, you're going in and playing for us. It's not like they're, free labor or whatever. Like, these guys want to play.
Right.
They want to go
Right.
in. I just want to make that clear. Like, OBJ obviously wanted to play. It wasn't like anyone was forcing him to. It's not like what could have happened in Tampa Bay with Antonio Brown, which is a whole nother can of worms that he's alleging.
Right.
It's not that. But I still think you're right in that even if you do recover, like I've had plenty of injuries in my time, and I've fully recovered, but it's still just a little bit, my sprained right ankle is still just a little bit weaker. My left shoulder is still just a little bit weaker than the right one, so
which
my
is
left MCL is still just a little bit weaker than the right one. So
which is why I think anytime I hear that athletes are, quote, coming back stronger after injury,
can, but
yeah, you definitely can. You can definitely pull an Adrian Peterson and whatever. I think it was 4 months after he tore his ACL, he was back out on the field, literally stronger than before he had left the field. You can. It's not impossible. Athletes transcend what we ever thought was possible of human beings, literally every single day in their careers. But after a while, your body breaks down. I'm happy for OBJ. I'm happy that he got a ring. I actually really like OBJ. I think he got screwed over by the Browns. I think, in New York, I think the ownership group at the New York Giants, they're kind of idiots anyways. So, why would you want to play in that situation? Why would you want to waste away your prime years there? He came into Los Angeles. He snapped into place immediately. But I mean, I feel bad for him. I feel very bad for him But he was crying afterwards, and it looked really sweet, and it was very wholesome, and...
And also, to finish off on this point, too, Andrew Whitworth, who, with all due respect, looks older than he actually is, I think, but he'll probably retire, most likely. I'm so happy he got a ring, too. It feels like he's been in the league forever, and he's just one of the best offensive linemen. This Rams is a really likable team. I like almost everyone on this team. There's no guy where I'm like, oh yeah, I hate him. The Bengals have a couple of those guys. I mean, Eli Apple was getting the heat from it on Twitter. He's not well liked by receivers apparently, but I mean, he gets burned every time. But my only problem with the Rams is they're an LA team, and if it wouldn't be any different because they'd be a St. Louis team. So that's my only issue. And that Stan Kroenke is the owner. I have 2 issues. Stan Kroenke, and that they're an LA/St. Louis team.
Your gripe is their geographic location and the billionaire that owns them.
Correct.
Got it. All right. See, the one thing that I really like about them is their geographic location. Well, I don't know much about their owner, but I'm assuming because he's an owner in the NFL, he kind of sucks because all the owners in the NFL suck in some capacity. You don't get that much money by being a decent human being. All right? I'm just going to put that out there now. You don't become a billionaire because you want what's best for the entire world. Because having $1 billion in your bank account means that you had to take advantage of a lot of other people to get that money.
Gabby's spitting tonight.
Yeah. It's a whole thing. My older sister and I talk about it all the time, that billionaires in this world should not exist. But it's a whole nother argument.
But yeah.
That's a whole nother argument for another day. But yes, we mentioned OBJ, so we mentioned one wide receiver, Cooper Kupp.
Yeah.
Your thoughts
MVP.
MVP of the Super Bowl. Your thoughts on his performance, his journey from Eastern Washington to Super Bowl MVP.
I think Aaron Donald should have been the MVP, first of all. But, I mean, Cooper Kupp has just had such an outstanding season. And to top it all off with 2 touchdowns and the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl. I mean, they held him under 100 receiving yards. So, I don't know. I feel like, hold on, we're going to get IT on this. Not to compare, but that's exactly what I'm going to do. How many yards did Julian Edelman have when he was Super Bowl MVP? Just out of curiosity. Obviously, that was a defensive matchup.
Was that when Edelman was playing on the New England Patriots?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think he's only played on the Patriots. Okay, he had 141 yards. He had he caught 10 for 141 yards. I don't know if there was only 1 touchdown in the game, and I don't even remember who scored that. Okay. See, that to me is an MVP performance in a game where if the Rams won, it probably would have been Aaron Donald because it was just such a defensive matchup. There was no one obvious from the Patriots defense, from my current memory, although one of the McCourtys could have won it too. But this one, it was you have lots of options. And I mean, I think it's a vote that I think closes at the end of the third. I don't know. But I would have rather it seen go to Aaron Donald. I mean, nothing against Cooper Kupp. Again, outstanding. My thoughts on it are outstanding season, absolutely well deserved.
Yeah.
I just think Aaron Donald deserved it a little bit more, but
If you're talking about game statistics and game impact alone, which in theory is what's supposed to be the award, but it doesn't seem like that's how the award was granted.
I mean, yes. Like if Cooper Kupp was like caught 2 passes for 22 yards, he wasn't going to be the MVP.
Yeah.
So 2 touchdowns, the game-winning touchdown, yeah, that puts you over the top pretty easily. That makes it pretty easy. I get it. I just think Aaron Donald was the clear MVP for the Rams.
Well, from one player who we thought should have been MVP might be retiring to a QB who a lot of people are saying should be a Hall of Famer whenever he decides to retire. Nicole, is Matthew Stafford a Hall of Famer?
I think yes, but I'm also somewhat conflicted on this because I think the terms of Hall of Fame in the NFL has changed. Not that it feels like it's gotten easier to get in, but the conversation around it has. Because, and maybe it's just getting so conflicting with guys like Eli Manning winning 2 Super Bowls, and we're like, okay, he won 2, but was he the reason they won 2? Not necessarily. They were, 9-7 and 10-6 going into those, respectively, 2007, 2011 Super Bowls. I mean, and now I haven't looked at it, but I know Matt Ryan was trending on Twitter today. We're talking about Phillip Rivers. It's just the conversation, and this isn't against Stafford or anything, the conversations around QBs entering the Hall of Fame, much less wide receivers. We were doing this when Edelman won MVP.
Right.
Has just, and maybe this is with social media, but it's shifted. And yes, he is. And I don't. I know Richard Sherman was like, well, he hasn't been a Pro Bowler or whatever that many times. Mitch Trubisky was a Pro Bowler. Okay, it really. Listen, dude, it doesn't matter like it used to being a Pro Bowler. I love Mitch. Don't get me wrong.
Oh gosh.
But I mean. I looked up his records just to see what he has, because he definitely has to have some. He has a unique one, actually. That will be very hard to top. So he's 49,995 passing yards and 323 passing touchdowns in his career. The most passing yards and most passing touchdowns for any quarterback to win his first Super Bowl title.
Wow.
That's very, very specific. But he has it. Probably won't be broken. John, this is from CBS, by the way, if you want to look up the article. Elway had 278 passing touchdowns before his first Super Bowl win in 97. And the most passing touchdowns before his Super Bowl, his first championship. Unitas had 208. He had more? Wow. 280 touchdown passes before his, but Unitas already had 3 NFL titles to his name. He also passed Elway for the most passing yards before his first title, as... Like I said, Elway had 48,669. So, and even when he was with the Lions, like, I know I was like, okay, saying he had no one on the Lions is kind of disingenuous to everyone else on the team. But he did have better weapons than the Rams. Like, that's a fact. And I mean, he's been throwing no-look passes. He's been throwing the passes that we've been marveling at Patrick Mahomes for since he got to Detroit. And he did it in LA too. So yeah, I think he is.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Okay, this might sound a little bit contradictory. I do think he is. And I think it's because he was a better player than people realized when he was playing in Detroit. Because he was playing in Detroit, he was more so a byproduct of the situation he was playing in. I also think people have something called graduation goggle syndrome. It's a syndrome where when you're approaching a very big event that brings up a lot of nostalgia, brings up a lot of conversation, such as a graduation, a wedding, a celebration, you get googly-eyed and you start only seeing the very best parts of people. And you think that the very best parts of them are what make them a whole human. And you don't necessarily realize that they are human. And they make mistakes, and they're flawed, and, they have won a Super Bowl, and they played for 12, 13 seasons for the crappy team, and they were really good. But, oh, by the way, they never went to the postseason. They weren't Pro Bowlers. Like, you don't see the other stuff outside of the moment of, you get really swept up in the moment. They call it graduation goggles because a lot of times when you graduate from high school, you get swept up in the moment, and people that you really didn't give much of a care about for those 4 years, for like 3 weeks at the end of senior year of high school, you love them. They're your best friends. You go to all the parties together. You go to all the graduation celebrations. You go to senior sunset. You do this, you do that. You have graduation day. You hug them. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to stay in touch. And then 4 years later, you're sitting in a chair at your college radio station realizing you haven't talked to that schmuck in 4 years. So,
jeez.
So that's graduation goggle syndrome.
Is there something you want to get off your chest, Gabby?
No.
Is there someone you haven't talked to in a while that you're kind of upset about? Because I'm feeling that tension.
I'm actually not upset at anyone. I just thought that was like a funny way to put it. It sounds more harsh than it should have been. No. It's
good word choice though. Good word choice.
Yeah. So I think it's a tiny bit of graduation goggle syndrome where they only really see the very best parts of him. I'm not saying he's not a phenomenal player, but I want to have this Hall of Fame conversation in 8 months when we're in the trenches of the NFL season. And I want to know if people still have the same opinion. I think I'll still have the same opinion. But let's chat in October, not in February, 2 days after the Super Bowl, about said Hall of Fame voting. That's what I'm going to say.
And, yeah, not as contradictory as you think, but I completely agree with you there. How about we talk some music, though? Some Super Bowl halftime show. Did you know there was a game at the concert on Sunday? Let's talk about our top 5 Super Bowl halftime shows. We were talking about this a little last week. But let's give our rundown of the top 5. You start with 5, I'll go 5, you 4, me 4, so on and so forth.
Okay, last year, 2021 is number 5 for me with The Weeknd. With all the mirrors and what they were able to do with the stage in spite of the pandemic and not having any fans there, the way they produced the concert, Stream Team coming out in me. And I love The Weeknd. I love his music. The memes that came out of it as well with him running around all of the mirrors. Yeah, that's number 5 for me. Nicole, what's number 5 for you?
That's a good one. I think that one sits just outside the top 5 for me personally, but that was, his show was awesome. For me, number 5 is Bruno Mars, 2014 in New York. The Red Hot Chili Peppers were there too, but they just didn't really need to be there. All love and respect to the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Bruno Mars is just a performer, man. He and Justin Timberlake could probably be tied for 5 because they are just performers. And the recent Justin Timberlake one, not the controversial one back in 2004. They're just performers, and they just go out there. Obviously, everyone on this list is, but he played the drums, he was on piano, and just a single stage, a single spotlight. It was just awesome. I love Bruno Mars. So that's number 5 for me. What's number 4?
So 2015, I remembered her performing at this game, but Katy Perry in specific in 2015. I rewatched it for the first time probably since then. It's just as amazing as I remember it. She comes out on a tiger because she's singing her song, right? She's singing her song Roar to start it off, and I'm sorry, it just doesn't get any more iconic than Katy Perry roaring her way through Super Bowl halftime.
You're forgetting the most legendary performer of them all in that, Left Shark. How dare you forget the legend of Left Shark? Are you sitting here forgetting Left Shark?
No, I'm not sitting here forgetting. I love Katy Perry, okay?
I also love Katy Perry. I thought it was great. That's probably in my top 10, maybe top 15. But Left Shark, dude.
Yeah, okay, fine. Left Shark as well.
Thank you.
Yes, Left Shark as well made that performance.
Number 4 for me is 2020, Shakira and J-Lo. This is one, I'll be completely honest, Shakira could have done and should have done by herself. All due respect to J-Lo. Love J-Lo. America doesn't realize, and I'm saying this as a complete American, realize how big Shakira is everywhere. Because she was the best part of this. Again, all due respect to J-Lo, she was fantastic, but Shakira's just awesome, man. This was so good. I was smiling my whole way through this. That's number 4. Let's move on to number 3.
All right, my top 3. This one, 2008, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. This one was also, I think this one was also at Phoenix Stadium. So maybe it was the 2008 season going into 2009 was when they played that game. Because I know we were talking about that earlier.
2008. The 2007 season and in 2008.
Yeah, was that what it was?
Yes, in Arizona.
Yeah, in Arizona. That's what I'm thinking of. That's one of the first Super Bowl performances that I actually remember. And just iconic songs, and I rewatched the video. I rewatched the videos for all of these before we came on the air tonight. Iconic songs, amazing band. The halftime show, I know they always go over the top for it. This one wasn't too over the top. They had like fans filing in and running in, and yeah, it was fun. That's number 3 for me.
Number 3 for me is a bit of a tie. I'm gonna start with the one furthest back in time. Beyonce in 2013. The lights go out. You know, it blows out a generator. The power goes out. But yeah, she's just awesome. She's so good. In New Orleans, that was awesome in 2013. And then came back in 2016 with Bruno Mars and Coldplay. Coldplay was the headliner for the Super Bowl 50. This was just awesome. It was just fun. I was smiling. I love Coldplay. I swear their mics were a little bit quieter than Bruno Mars and Beyonce. I swear on my life. But
I'd have to go back and watch the tape and tell you for myself.
But Coldplay didn't have to do that. They didn't have to bring Beyonce and Bruno Mars, 2 artists who are arguably bigger than them in some way, in America at least. And they did, and it was awesome. And it was just such a fun, joyous performance. That's number 3 for me. Gabby, what's number 2?
Number 2 for me is probably, I think this is the first Super Bowl halftime I actually remember watching when I was a child. It was the Rolling Stones in 2006. Paul McCartney performed in 2005, and then the Stones performing in 2006. Just iconic band. I think I love that performance so much as well because my dad was a really big Stones fan. And this is probably why I remember the performance because Stones were his favorite band growing up. So he was just over the moon excited. He was more excited about halftime show than he was about... And the halftime show was incredible. He was more excited about that than he was about the actual game. I have to go Rolling Stones number 2.
For me, number 2 is going to be this year's Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, Mary J. Blige, Eminem, and Kendrick. It was Kendrick Lamar. It was so good. I was smiling and bobbing my head the whole way through. Anderson .Paak was on drums. 50 Cent was upside down, which is homage to his video for Indie Club. It was just putting on a 15 minute is how long you have. Super Bowl show with that many people and to do it as well as they did was spectacular. I mean, it was just I was ascending. It was an out of body experience, not really, but like it was just so good. It's one that's going to live in my mind for rent free for a very long time. Gabby, give us your number 1.
It's going to sound very similar to yours. There's just a 1 in front of it instead of a 2. It's living rent free forever. It's 2022, baby. It's that performance with Mary J. Blige, with Eminem, with Kendrick, with Snoop, with Dr. Dre. You could cut that list in half and it would still be iconic. The fact that all of them came together and put on the show they put on, it was a beautiful thing. Some part of me almost liked halftime even more than the game, and I really enjoyed that football game. So, yeah, 2022 is number 1 for me, hands down. Nicole.
My only complaint for this year's show is it didn't go longer. That's it.
Okay.
I wish it went longer. Number 1 for me, and one that's going to be very hard to top, is Prince in 2007. It just couldn't get more perfect than that. Performing, and I watched a video on this the other night, actually, is they were like, it was pouring down rain. This is a Bears Colts Super Bowl in Florida. Pouring down rain, and Prince is like, can you make it rain harder? I mean, singing, and he just went out and performed. He didn't even sing some of his own songs. And at the end, he sang Purple Rain with his guitar in the rain. Just so good. Rest in peace, Prince. Just legendary.
R.I.P. to the legend, right?
Yes. But wow, that took up a lot of time. Maybe let's take a break.
Yeah, we're going to go to break really quick, guys. When we come back, we're going to talk about a little bit of Kyler Murray drama, and then we'll move off football. But yeah, stay tuned for more on The Future is Female. And we're back, just like that, 30-second break. Let's rip right into it, Nicole. We talked Super Bowl the first 37 minutes of our show. But there's a little bit of juices flowing right here in the valley. Nicole, break it down for us. What's going on with Kyler Murray?
Who knows? I don't even know. So Kyler Murray, want to say last week and a half ago, removed everything Cardinals related from his social media, Instagram, Twitter, whatever. Released a statement on social media today saying, he plays for the love of the game and, quote, all of this nonsense is not what I'm about, never has been, never will be. This post came a day after NFL Network's Mike Garafolo reported that the Cardinals were looking for Murray to, quote, take steps forward with his maturity and leadership. Chris Mortensen also tweeted, quote, the odd vibe between the Cardinals and Murray is indeed alarming. Murray is described as self-centered, immature, and finger-pointer, per sources. Murray is frustrated with the franchise and was embarrassed by a playoff loss to the Rams and thinks he's being, oh my God, I need to breathe, and thinks he's been framed as the scapegoat. A lot of people thought, maybe this is just for uniform change, much needed, Super Bowl ad. No, I think it's a little bit more than that. And it's just, they're talking about his body language and whatever, and like he's just an immature leader. He, like it says, finger pointer. With the Cardinals front office, it's hard for me to really believe this about Kyler Murray. I don't know what to think. I mean, you can't ruin this, Cardinals. You have a pretty good quarterback in Kyler Murray, who I have my own issues with as a quarterback that I saw this season, but you can't draft a guy number 1 overall, the next year draft another guy number 1 overall, and just ruin it like this. Like, what is going on? You have to figure it out. That's really all I have to say about this, because I don't fully understand what's going on.
I don't understand it either, because it just seems immature. Why are we turning to social media? Why don't y'all just sit at a table and figure it out?
Yeah. Like
adults do? He's not acting very adultish, considering he's getting paid big kid money. Big kid money. I think it's childish. Whatever it is. I don't want to be involved. Figure it out in private. I don't want to see it on my Twitter timeline.
Yeah, don't disagree with you. How about some NBA? Oh boy, the big trade happened. Gabby, take us through some of the bigger trades.
All right. It finally happened. Ben Simmons is no longer a member of the Philadelphia 76ers. If you asked Daryl Morey, he would say something along the lines of, about time. He was sick of it. Simmons was sick of it. I was sick of reading about it. No matter how much I love Gina Mizell and her writing in the Philadelphia Inquirer, I felt bad for her. I felt bad that she had to cover this head case for as long as she's had to. 76ers. They get Paul Millsap. The Nets get Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and a 2022 first-round pick and a 2027 first-round pick. They also gave up James Harden. So take that as you will. They gave up James Harden because Harden was like, I want out. I want out. Harden's wanted to be in Philly since day one because of their GM, Daryl Morey. Harden played with Morey for about a decade in Houston. And he wanted back. He wanted his GM back. So massive trade, obviously. I think Harden and Embiid will fit very well together. I still kind of question, though, whether or not there are enough basketballs on the court for both of them. Simmons in Brooklyn, I think he's going to fit well with Kevin Durant, and I think he's going to kind of push out Kyrie Irving a little, because he's a ball-dominant point guard that's just as good as Kyrie, at least defensively, and his faults offensively, I would almost argue you need to move Kyrie for the games he's actually eligible to play in. You need to move Kyrie to the 2 spot and let Simmons handle the basketball so that you don't lose out on the shooting. The fact that the Nets got Seth Curry in this deal, I think, is very, very overlooked, because when you're giving up a pure shooter like Harden and losing that outside ability to be able to spread the floor because Simmons can't shoot for anything, you've got to have something in return. You've got to have something to make up that ground, and I think they did that with Seth Curry. Nicole, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this was quite the trade. I don't remember where I was driving home from, but I was driving home from somewhere, and wow. Just wow. And it's just such an unbelievable trade that happens between two teams that are competing for playoff spots, or, better playoff spots. It feels like a win-win in a way, because obviously Ben Simmons had to get out of Philly, and Brooklyn listened to James Harden's request. I mean, who wins this trade, Gabby? To you, who wins this trade? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Personally, I think the 76ers won the trade because they got rid of Ben Simmons. I just don't want Simmons on my team. Like, at this point, I don't want him on my team, period. I don't know if I want Harden that badly either, but I'm going to say the 76ers, because of the duo that they have with Embiid and Harden, I think that's going to work very, very well. Embiid is not a ball handler. He does not need the ball in his hands to create from a perimeter standpoint. He's not a swingman. He's a big man. Harden is a very defined swingman. Embiid is a very defined big man. On Brooklyn, Ben Simmons, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving all have the ability to be swingmen that can carry the ball up the court on their own, create the offense on their own, and there are too many people and not enough basketballs on the court in Brooklyn. So I'm going to say I think Philly won the trade because I think the fit of the two players is better.
I'm going to just counter that with, I think because of Ben Simmons' hesitancy to shoot the ball, there's now more shots for Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, who are pretty good shooters. I mean, I'm no expert, but I think they're pretty good. And I think that's really big. You just increased his shots by, a third. And I think that's pretty big on Brooklyn's side. But to the Ben Simmons discourse, I haven't read too much into his mental health, what's really going on. The only thing I want to say is, and this goes for a lot of things, Ben Simmons, nor will anyone else in the NBA see what you tweet, most likely.
Right.
Your friends will. So just be mindful of what you're saying is all I'm going to say. Especially on such a topic that's so stigmatized like his mental health. Again,
yeah,
I don't know if
that's true.
I don't know if he was, I've seen he was utilizing it to get out of this situation. I saw someone tweet that, oh, well, like, look at him smiling in Brooklyn now. Clearly nothing was wrong. Well, no, you're not right either, because people can fake it pretty, not easily, but people fake it, right? They can hide it. And getting out of a bad situation can relieve some things if it was what Simmons was talking about, or just what was reported.
Right.
So just be mindful of what you're tweeting. That's all I'm going to say. Again, I don't know enough about it to really have a comment on Ben Simmons and the Philly debacle.
Right.
That's all I want to say on the mental health standpoint.
From what I understood, and I'm not trying to discount his mental health journey, because if he is struggling mentally, he might be needing to stop playing basketball entirely and, go get actual help and figure it out, right? If you're genuinely struggling like that, I am such a firm believer that you need to step back, you need to get the help you need, and you shouldn't just bulldoze through, right? That's not, a change of scenery will not help you if you are genuinely struggling mentally. It can kind of ease the pain a little bit, but it's not going to solve everything. The one thing I will say with Simmons is he's always kind of been known as, obviously, a player with a lot of confidence, a player that understands the game really well, that also understands how much power and influence he'll have on a franchise when he's there. And he knew that even before he got to the NBA. He knew that when he was in college at LSU. He didn't really go to class very much. He was pretty confident, very much so, like, one-stop shop, I'm out of here. Not unlike a lot of college one-year guys that go to the league. But I kind of wonder if not only is it mental health, I wonder if there's a little bit of a bit more, like, I don't want to say arrogance and ego, but I wonder how did the two kind of combine together, because obviously he didn't get a choice in what city he was drafted to, but clearly he probably wasn't getting enough voice either in the front office. Like, there was a lot of stuff going on that must have been toxic for him, but I'm not going to discount the fact either that he's always kind of been known in the media, especially, as a very confident player, a player that knows, that knows his place, that knows how much power, influence he has, and is not afraid to use it when he needs to. And he definitely used it right now. He's definitely used it for the last 8 months since he last played basketball. So I will also say that I don't want to discount the mental health journey at all, but I also don't want to discount the fact that players, when they need to put their foot down to his level, they're not afraid to flex those muscles. And he definitely flexed those muscles in the biggest way possible right now. So, yeah, I don't know. Nicole, do you have a team that you think won this trade? Do you think the Nets won it, or?
After hearing your explanation on the Sixers, I start to lean towards the Sixers.
Yeah.
As winning this trade. But in some ways, it is kind of a win-win because, James Harden got out of Brooklyn, which is something he wanted. Ben Simmons got out of Philly, which is something he wanted. So it's really just the pieces around it of who won this trade. And the 76ers got a lot for this trade. The Nets got a lot for this trade. But the Sixers, who are not, the East is tough this year. They're not far out of contention for that. Feels like they got a leg up on Brooklyn, which is someone they'll be seeing, I think, in the playoffs. So
Right.
But there were a lot of other big trades. This wasn't the only big trade.
Not at all. Oh my gosh. Okay. So we have that's the blockbuster one. I was waiting for the Woj treat to drop on my timeline that day. It dropped. And then very quietly, well, a little more quietly, at least on my timeline, the Mavericks sent Kristaps Porzingis in a 2022 second round pick to Washington for Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans.
What a hilarious trade.
Do you know who Davis Bertans is?
No. Well, no, I've heard the name, but...
I've heard the name, but I...
No, I don't.
No.
Giving up Porzingis in 2022 for Dinwiddie?
Yeah.
Are we sure? Dallas, Mark, are you sure about that? I mean, listen, Luka's gonna do what he does. He already did, the night of the trade, but,
Yeah, he put up 50 the night the trade went down.
Interesting. All I'll say is... interesting.
Yeah, interesting. That's all we have to comment on that one. The Bucks got Serge Ibaka in a 4-team trade. I really liked that one, actually.
Yeah, that's a good one.
The Bucks and Serge Ibaka. The Kings got the big Ragu himself, Dante DiVincenzo. The Pistons got Marvin Bagley III, another player that was traded away from the Kings. I don't remember if it was exactly in this deal, but
yeah.
Tyrese Halliburton got traded away from the Kings over to the Indiana Pacers.
I believe it was. I just put some of the bigger names of the trade.
Yeah. And Tyrese Halliburton, at least in Kings world, that was a very, very big deal that they let him go. He was a rookie last season in the same class as LaMelo Ball. He was drafted in 2020. Yeah, I think he's averaging 17 and 8 right now on the Pacers. He was expected to be a cornerstone for the rest of their franchise. And this is the Kings essentially saying, we're going all in on De'Aaron Fox. He's our future. This is us banking on it. I don't know if I love the idea of that.
No, I don't either. But I do love the Pistons getting Marvin Bagley III. Him and Cade Cunningham, listen, as the Pistons having a very small piece of my heart, I really like that trade for Detroit.
I like it too. I think my favorite part about this, though, is Serge Ibaka going to the Bucks.
Yeah,
That's huge. That's huge for taking pressure off Giannis defensively and giving them another big man down low that's just a proven veteran who's won titles and all of that. Trade deadline. You just typed it in. The Lakers and the Chicago Bulls make no deals. Nicole, your thoughts on your Chicago Bulls?
They needed to do something. I mean, I'm so glad they didn't give up Kobe White, which was my worry. They needed to do something with Lonzo out and Caruso out. I mean, and Levine is hurt. The news just keeps getting worse out of Chicago. They're worried about Levine's knee. They needed to do something. DeMar DeRozan can't do it all by himself. He has been, and he's been fantastic. The supposed worst free agent signing of the offseason. But
just wait till the playoffs.
They needed to do something.
No, DeRozan is notorious for cracking in the playoffs. You realize that, right?
Yes. We'll see. New city. But they need to do something. Again, I don't know who I would have wanted to see them trade for pieces that they would want to acquire, because that would probably include the likes of Kobe White. And I'm glad he's here still, but yeah, they needed to do something. What about you, Gabby, and the Lakers?
I just felt like they needed to do something. They needed to get younger. They needed to get a little bit faster. They needed to get a little bit better at shooting, and they did none of that at the break. They just did none of that. I don't know if they're hoping to get something in the buyout market right now, because there are players that are getting activated and can be picked up and bought out. But I felt like they needed to do something. I don't know if you're expecting that you're going to flip a switch next week after NBA All-Star, and that's what's going to do it. Yeah, I was same as you. I felt like they needed to do something, whether it was trading Russell Westbrook or not. I was very adamant last week that they needed to trade him. Now, I don't know if trading Westbrook was going to be the answer, because they have a lot of other problems outside of Westbrook. Yeah, I think they just needed to get a little bit younger, a little bit faster, a little bit better at shooting, and they didn't do any of that. So, see if they do anything in the buyout market, or if a switch just gets flipped after the All-Star break like they always try to do with LeBron James on any team, any time. Nicole, any last thoughts on the NBA before we move on to college basketball and the WNBA and all that?
You and I both forgot the All-Star game was this weekend. I don't know how that came so fast.
We did.
But speaking of the All-Star game, the moment of the draft between LeBron and Durant reasoning taking Gobert over Harden, who is not playing in the All-Star game, but that was just amazing. The NBA is just so fun off the court, just as much as it is on. That was an amazing moment. They even Kevin Durant was trying to pull the straight face for as long as he could. LeBron had a clipboard. It was just... No one can do it like the inside the NBA guys. I mean, really, like, no one can get that out of them, and that was just fantastic. That's all I have to say. But
I'm still excited for All-Star Weekend, even though it snuck up on me, and I'm a bad NBA fan for not paying better attention. I'm still excited for it. College basketball, really quickly. Arizona State women's basketball. They were on the bubble going into last weekend. In my eyes, they're now off the bubble. They defeated number 6 Arizona at the time at home. I was on the call for that for Blaze. Great game. Top 3 game easily that I've been to in my college career. Fantastic. Just fantastic. Then they go down to Tucson. They're on the road at McHale Center. Charlie Turner Thorne said, "This will probably be the most hostile environment we've played in this season." They only lost by 4 on the road. Maya Giles straight up balled out this weekend. Friday night, she had 19 points and 10 boards. 19 points was a new season high for her. I'm going to do a story on her, actually, hopefully, for Sun Devil Athletics, so stay tuned for that if y'all want to read it. Yeah, I think they're now off the bubble. Nicole, did you watch any of their stuff this weekend?
I couldn't, unfortunately, but yeah, what a win to get at home. I mean, even splitting the series, they're still fighting for that bubble, but just... and having all those upsets in a row, like, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, they kind of rejuvenated their season at just the right time. Paige Beckers, just want to talk for a tiny second. She's out right now with a knee injury. She has essentially a broken tibia and a torn lateral meniscus, and the expected time for her to get healthy and recover was 8 weeks. That's insane. Like, as someone who's had their leg broken before in surgery, it took me 2.5 years to get back to where I was. I'm just, obviously, I'm not an expert. I'm not an orthopedic surgeon or anything. But wow, if she's actually coming back before the season ends, that's not guaranteed yet, but if she's coming back before the season ends, she's an absolute whiz with rehabilitation. She's also inked some very major NIL deals. Cash App, StockX. She trademarked her nickname Paige Buckets. Nicole. What are your thoughts on the NIL and the injury?
Just terrible injury that, I know she didn't want to come off the court and whatever, but it didn't feel like it had to happen. Obviously, no injury does. But good for her as far as the deals and everything. Absolutely deserved. Wish her nothing but the best and just hope for a speedy recovery.
Yeah. Blazing really quickly through the WNBA. Total chaos in free agency. My Los Angeles Sparks. We signed Jordan Canada and Katie Lou Samuelson. They're both coming back home. Fantastic deals across the board. The Sparks are introducing those players this week. I might have a story coming out on them soon, so stay tuned for that. Mercury are still going to dominate with Tina Charles and Diamond DeShields, as we discussed last week. And now, to finish off, Nicole, any other thoughts on the WNBA before we finish off with Future Fantasy?
I forget. Someone's re-signing with this guy that I'm very happy about. I just remembered, and I feel bad for not remembering the name, but let's run it back. It's going to be tougher, but let's run it back.
We'll run it back next week with details on that deal. Future Fantasy, based on Bill Plaschke's column, Los Angeles, you've got another champion, make room for the Rams. That was the headline. Bill Plaschke, make room for the LA Sparks. If you can make room for the NFL in this city, you can make room for the WNBA. If you can make room for a team that's only been in the city for a few years, you can make room for the original franchise that's been there for 25 years. He mentions the Lakers, he mentions the Dodgers, the Angels, the Galaxy. He mentions every major professional team in Los Angeles, essentially except for the LA Sparks. So this is more broadly applicable to every major city where there is a WNBA team, because in most WNBA cities there are also NFL teams. I understand. The NFL is king. The NFL will probably always be king for as long as professional sports kind of exists. But if you can make room for football, you can make room for basketball. And if you can make room for a team that's been there for 6 years, you can most definitely make room for a team that has been in the city for 25 years and won 3 WNBA titles. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, mic drop. That is my Future Fantasy for the week.
And it's a great one at that. And yeah, and we were talking about it? No, it was Kirsten and I earlier. For a city that doesn't seem to care about football a lot and a lot more about basketball.
Yeah.
You got a pretty good one in the Sparks to cheer on. So get out there and support your Sparks too.
Exactly.
In a much cheaper game.
Yes. The
Rams Stadium is amazing, I will say, but much cheaper.
Yeah, I'm not saying you don't have to choose between the two. I'm just saying support both. If you're going to support one, support the other.
It's very easy to support both. Incredibly easy, actually.
It's incredibly easy to support the WNBA team especially. I think that's going to do it for us on The Future is Female. Of course, for Nicole Pinter, I'm Gabby Ducharme. We will catch you guys next Tuesday, same place, same time. Until then, stay happy, stay safe, stay healthy.